Happy New Year! Time to watch Cobra Kai season 3. Agreed, but you're not going to watch it all in one day, are you? Don't judge me. Hello, everyone. Terrence here with Hollywood Already Did. If you haven't already, go ahead, like, share, subscribe to the channel, ring that bell below. Anytime we have something, you will be among the first to know. Well, Cobra Kai season 3 premiere got pushed up a week, which is perfect because everyone's at home. They're at home anyway, but the day after New Year's Eve, on New Year's Day, everybody's at home. You can have all the time you want in the world to binge it, watch it however you choose to. I chose to watch it all in one sitting. It's interesting how this is a little show that could, though. This started off on YouTube. I remember watching this. I got a free trial to YouTube when that was trying to be a network, and they had basically two shows. I think it was this and some Saved by the Bell. I'm not Saved by the Bell. Some Save the Last Dance type of show on there. But got the trial, gravitated to Cobra Kai season 1, and I binged it in a week. And I was like screaming from the rooftops, everybody needs to be watching the show. You should be watching it. You should be watching it. Problem is, nobody had YouTube, or they were not going to go get YouTube. So it became sort of this little hidden darling for a lot of niche people here and there. I didn't see season 2 because I had no desire to go back to YouTube, nor did I have another free trial to use. So I didn't watch it until someone decided the great idea to fold the YouTube network idea and sell it, the one good thing that they had, off to Netflix. And boy, has it been a good ride ever since then. Watched burn all through season 2 later in the year, last year, and knowing that season 3 was going to be coming at the top. So the first part of this is going to be non-spoilery. I'll let you guys know when the spoilers begin. So this season starts off right after season 2 ended up. Miguel is in a coma. Johnny feels responsible for that and has also lost Cobra Kai to his old sensei, Kreese. Um, and so that's the gist of what we leave with at the end of 2. This picks up right after that, and we learn that we learn that Sam is suffering from a major bout of PTSD from the Freddy Kruegering that Tori does to her at the school. Robbie's on the run. He's on the run from everybody, and no one can find him. Not neither Johnny nor Daniel or any of the classmates. And then the Larusso's auto dealership is under the guise of going under because everybody in the city is blaming karate for the fight that took place at the school and as well for the condition of Miguel. And because they are all anti karate, as we have all seen in the first couple of seasons, LaRusso uses karate as a marketing tool, and thus it is backfiring and making it sort of a poison pill for the LaRusso auto dealership. So this series as a whole does an admirable job of humanizing everyone, from Johnny to Tori to Daniel to Creasy, even especially this season. They give each person layers and an opportunity to show their truth and look at each story from multiple sides to get the viewpoint of whomever is telling the story. And I think this does a very good job of showing the good, the bad, the high, the low, the clean and the gritty and the ugliness of each person. So there are layers to it, and this series has been remarkable at doing that from the get go. So this season feels a lot like a setup for future seasons. Its whole goal is to put pieces and people and factions into places so that we can get on from this point, jumping off into whatever they choose to do in the future for the series. For me, the best thing that comes out of this particular season is the a sort of resolution to the will they won't they be cordial be friends between Daniel and Johnny. We get a lot of back and forth, and while I think there still will be some friction on how they do things in the future, there seems to be an overwhelming resolution to their story and their friction, and that from this point on we can kind of move forward to new frictions and new situations and new adversaries that they have to take on, perhaps together. I was a little sad to know that we lose Aisha Robinson this season, and I don't know if it's permanent, but based on the storyline that they do for this, it feels necessary. It just sucks because she's the only person that is black in the major cast, and to lose that sort of just it feels empty, like you're losing something. But I would give the writers a bit of a benefit of the doubt on this one. There are two folds to this. One, it makes sense from a story standpoint in that the only friend that Sam has is Aisha at the top of this because Miguel's in a coma, Robbie's gone. So if you had left Aisha on the board, some of the fear or loneliness or being alone or not having anybody to talk to that Sam has to go through this season, there could be an easy out if Aisha is on the board. The other thing is there needs to be some ramifications what happens at the high school, the big fight. If a huge brawl happens at a high school and parents are freaked out about it, there are going to be some parents that have to move their kids away to get away and change their lives so that they're safe. So all of that tracks, all that makes sense. It just makes me a little sad that Aisha is the one that we lose. Like usual, the action sequences this season have been phenomenal. The standout for me, and they've been doing this a lot lately with these huge finale sequences or tracking sequences that just look phenomenal. But without going into detail, because I'll get into spoilers later, but without going into detail, there's an action sequence that takes place at a place that we've seen throughout all the seasons in some form or fashion. We've seen every nook and cranny of this set. And so to see it now being a big action set piece was just phenomenal. It was great. It was fun to watch. Very entertaining and super well done. Let me talk about the character that I grew to love the most this year. It's Amanda LaRusso. Daniel's wife has been fantastic this season. She is the voice of reason. She's the voice of like any type of sanity on a lot of the craziness that happens. And she also has a compassion. Like she shows, while she's concerned for Johnny, she shows love and actual like care for him and knows that and can see that there is something that these two have that is more common than not. We also get someone else who comes in a little bit later to play on that too, but there's an interaction with a character that comes back from Karate Kid past that I think is just fantastic and just took her where I already loved her, took her up to another level. I need to talk about the one thing that I did not like this season, and it's starting to become the thing that I'm not sure I can really get around for this whole series. Robbie Keane is a character that I just can't wrap my head around, and every time he's on screen, I start to roll my eyes. And I don't think it's the actor, because he's fine. I think it's the way that the character is written. There is something very unlikable about him with this whole go with whomever shows him attention and doesn't like cast him away. He's very indecisive, and I know some of that has to do with like he's got a father who was never around and a mother who was super abusive and dependent on drugs. So he has this internal conflict of I won't say spoiled, but a needy kid who has not gotten attention. But even when people are giving him attention, he does not know how to accept that. And we've been dealing with that same beat for multiple seasons now. And there hasn't been any growth or raising or falling. It's just kind of been one note. And this season in particular, he gets used more as a MacGuffin for Johnny, for Daniel, for Creasy, for Sam, for Tori, as opposed to doing anything that is human or worthwhile to himself. And that's sort of a disservice to the actor, but more so a disservice to the character, because I think everybody else in this series has growth or some type of layers to them, whereas I don't really get that for Robbie in any way, shape, or form. All right, so now would be the time that if you have not seen Cobra Kai Season 3, you need to get up on out of here, because I'm going to break open few spoilers. Not much, because I don't want to ruin the entire series, but there are some people that have watched it or that will continue on even after I'm telling you to back out for spoilers. So I won't destroy everything, but there's some things that I just have to talk about. So, give me a few seconds to get up out of here. Eagle Fang might be the worst name that I've ever heard, but it is very fun and funny to see Johnny try to come up with something on the spot. I don't see that faction name or title continuing on based on the way that everything resolves, but it'd be kind of cool to just start getting a couple of Eagle Fang shirts, because I feel like they would take off pretty well considering how big this show is right now. So the biggest thing that I have for anybody who is trying to get into the Cobra Kai Season 3, I think you should do a little homework first. Obviously, the first Karate Kid in the first 2 seasons, but I think Karate Kid 2 is a valuable watching piece before jumping into Cobra Kai season 3. The show as a whole already does a fantastic job of cutting pieces and putting montages and things here and there to explain to you, but I just think you get a better overall sense of the world and how everything is. You get a full landscape if you see Karate Kid 2 prior to watching. I say that because as a side story, we get LaRusso going to Okinawa to sort of resolve a situation that he's having with, actually more so to find clarity after trying to go to find a resolution to a situation that's affecting the auto dealership. And there he finds that Okinawa is nowhere near the place that it once was. But he also finds some much needed familiar faces like Kamiko and an old rival. That he learns that holding on to old grudges and holding on to festering hate and whatever you may have or had as a youth can be troubling, and it may just be better to kind of just let that stuff go. On the flip side, and this is what this whole season is, the yin and the yang of it. On the flip side, Johnny sort of learns the same thing from a blast from the past in Allie, played by Elizabeth Shue. She shows up, and they have a pretty good rekindling and a pretty good, both a reconciliation, and they have a pretty good date. And they go out on a pretty good date, and she happens to pull the truest and most honest version of Johnny out. And they eventually go out on a date, and she invites him to the club that LaRusso had to sneak into the kitchen to do when he was younger. But now he's coming through the front door, and there's this triangle of LaRusso, Ali, and Johnny, and they start going tit for tat again over Ali, even though LaRusso's off the market. Which brings up Amanda, which I spoke of earlier. Her interactions, Amanda and Ali, I can just watch an entire show of them having a drunken conversation about exes and how LaRusso was when he was a kid, how Johnny was, and all of that good stuff. We get a resolution to what happened between Ali and Daniel, why she was no longer in anything else in this film. So that's a pretty good coda for Karate Kid. But I think the biggest thing from all of this is that Ali is there to humanize Johnny and take some of the piss out of whatever LaRusso and Daniel have. I mean, whatever LaRusso and Johnny have. And so sort of say, hey guys, this is stuff that happened in the past. You guys are so much alike. And I think you guys are both at fault and need to accept some of that. And they do. And it seems like there might be, like I said earlier, that little glimmer of the back and forth pettiness between Daniel and Johnny may be over. Because we get a good shot at the very end of them bringing their teams together. But I think it allows the series to breathe and get past that and kind of move on to Kreese being the new big bad. I will say in that sequence, the Ali and Johnny hugging and him just saying, I needed this, was one of the most special. Like, it was like, oh, that's it. That's the moment. So that's all I'm going to really touch on. Too much on the spoilers. I just had to because some of those classic characters come back. But as a whole, this season goes out of its way to make sure that Daniel and Johnny are closer by returning old faces from their past, from both of their pasts. Some of them share the past. And so there's not a lot of typical story progression that happens. It's a lot of kind of resting within a couple of days, and it's a small moment in time. The biggest thing is that this is a character development season, and the whole point of that is to get Johnny's faction and Daniel's factions together so that the new big bad that's in the future with Kreese can now be stopped. Which brings me to Kreese. Kreese, they do a pretty good job of trying to humanize him as well this season. Doesn't quite work as well as some of the other characters because I think he's been so ingrained in my head as a villain, but they do an entire flashback sequence that I won't go into great detail about, but there is a character in there that I think is going to play a big part for what they do in the future, and I would advise everyone to watch Karate Kid 3 before jumping into Cobra Kai Season 4, because I think it's going to be a payoff with Thomas Ian Griffin coming back to reprise his role of Terry Silver, because I think they are simply doing everything to bring everything full circle in this world of Karate Kid, which means at some point in time, we're going to have to get Hilary Swank on that phone. But that's it for me. I absolutely adored Cobra Kai season 3, just like I adore the other two. Probably I like season 2 slightly more than season 3 because I think season 3 is more stagnant, but better on the character development. But I still, as a whole, think the series is just phenomenal, and I can't wait to see what season 4 brings us. Have you watched Cobra Kai season 3? What did you guys think? Go ahead and leave your comments in the comments below. If you haven't, you can follow us on Twitter at HollywoodADI. You can hit us up on email at HollywoodAlreadyDidIt@gmail.com. We also have a podcast with the same name that's on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere the place podcasts. We're there. It's been a minute since we did the last episode, just because the movie releases are sort of all over the place and we can't quite get a set schedule. But there's an entire back catalog you can go ahead and listen to. We also have a sister podcast called You Can't Do That Anymore. We talk about movies like Weird Science or Short Circuit, Gone with the Wind, American Beauty. Look at those films that occurred back in the day and look at them through the eyes of 2021 to see if some of the things they did and didn't do can still be done today. But like always, I got my ticket. You got yours.